Hello, this is Duncan here with the latest edition of Cambridge Coffee Corner. On this week's episode, I'm joined by three esteemed colleagues. I'm with Joe Romain, I'm with Joe Lawler, and I'm with Mike Powell. Good morning, gents. How's the coffee?
Great, thank you.
Well, we'll jump right in. On today's episode, we are delving into the area of why implementations fail. And despite the fact we're all very positive folks, and we all start off with success in mind, we are going to be talking about a number of failure conditions this morning. So, with that in mind, we're going to talk about on this session. We're going to talk about the 5 pitfalls, and we're going to spend a few minutes on each one. And we're going to immerse ourselves in those different aspects of the pitfalls of failing. We're going to stay very positive, though, aren't we, gents? Because we don't want to be talking in a world of negatives. We want to be talking about how we get out of this stuff. But let's talk about the pitfalls. Okay, the first one we're going to talk about is poor planning and requirements. And we're going to start off where it all begins in planning. And why the planning is such a common failure point. What do you think? I'll go to you first, Mike. What do you think around poor planning is a major pitfall?
Yeah, I think this one's absolutely crucial. And, in my experience, if you don't spend sufficient time on defining the requirements and the project plan, then you're asking for trouble. You're asking for the implementation to be dramatically extended. So the more time you spend on the planning part, the less time you're going to have in the overall implementation. So that's this is really a major pitfall if you don't get this part right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with Mike that planning is important. I don't think anyone can do anything without some sort of plan, especially when there's a lot of people, process, and technology involved. And when it comes to requirements, it's easy for an organization to tick every box, to say they want everything. And that's one of the real pitfalls when we start looking to select and then implement a project, is to really help them categorize what is really needed and what is needed to help them reach their planned future goals versus what would be so fantastic to have. Because even though a competitor may have that as a goal or have that as something they've implemented, it doesn't mean it's really great for them.
Yeah, totally agree. I've come across a couple of projects where the enthusiasm to get going and deliver some results as well means that the planning can be shortcutted, because planning, often the output of a planning stage of a project can actually just be something that's documentational. Then we haven't started on the requirements and we haven't done any prototyping or anything like that yet. So getting people's buy-in to the fact that there's a true planning phase is a really good step, because otherwise there's just a enthusiasm for delivering something and then the planning has just been skipped over completely. Okay, we're going to jump on to the next one. The second one we've got is leadership turnover and weak sponsorship. It's a really obvious one, but let's nail this one. Who wants to pick up that first in terms of being in a project with a strong leader and what can go wrong when it's not there?
Well, again, this is crucial, and you do need to have a key executive sponsor. Obviously, been involved in a number of projects where the top team is changing, and sometimes you get back to square one because a new executive comes in, and this can stall the project for months, if not years. So clearly, it's important to have continuity at the executive sponsor level.
Yeah, I think
Um,
related to that is perhaps a desire for a new leadership to be bought into the project, and if they are going to do some kind of reset, they want to put their own imprint on it as well. Is allow them to do that, but do it in such a way that it doesn't mean that you're losing momentum along the way. Um, but the new leader wants to make sure that maybe sweeping away errors that may have caused the leadership change in the first place, but not allow the momentum to get lost. What do you think? What do you think, Joe Romain?
Definitely, I agree with all of you. Also, definitely the executive leadership, leaders on the project are big, but also just making sure you have the right representation within that organization as part of it and bought into it. I think that's just as important. Because yes, you're going to have turnover in leadership. Yes, they might have a different view, but if you have an organization bought into a new concept or plan, excited about it, maybe they'll step back or and just maybe sprinkle in their changes to make that project better
Yeah,
rather than completely ripping it out, because if there's more time invested by others, it less likely somebody's going to be able to go in and just rip it out
yeah,
unless they want to get more turnover from the underlinks that are leaving to go to another company.
yeah. Anything to add there, Mr. Lawler? Or have we covered it?
No, I think I'd only add that, projects have friction and projects, everyone I've worked in, it'll eventually hit the fan to a smaller, massive degree. And they will not turn to consultants. They will not turn to IT. Their executive sponsor is who they're going to turn to. And they need to be a general that's leading the force. They have to be strong and follow through because people are resistant to change. They're going to want to go back to the status quo.
Right, good stuff. So we'll move on to reason three, and our friend Jackie would have loved this section. So let's try and do her some justice here in the area of neglected change management. If you don't get the change management nailed, your project is doomed to at least not realize some of its benefits and that kind of thing, and at worst derail a project. What do you
Well,
think?
why don't we put some numbers to it? I mean,
Go
so
ahead.
McKinsey study a few years ago said 143% return on investment versus 35% return on investment. That is the difference between using change management, believing in it, having it injected in your veins versus not. So
Yeah,
the numbers, kind of like poker, the cards read themselves, the numbers read themselves. I think change management and project management work great hand in hand when they start on day one together and they finish on day X.
yeah.
And I trust McKinsey's numbers on it.
So a little more than the last mile, then, Joe.
Yeah, a little bit. I think that is the worst time to implement anything is at the caboose. I mean, it's
yeah,
funny because project management and change management are conflated often, but it's like a Venn diagram. There's overlap, but there's clear spaces for change management to be injected throughout a project. I think especially when you're trying to understand the culture, try to understand how to mitigate resistance to change, and when you're implementing feedback loops, this is all green space for change management and it's often overlooked by project management.
Mhm. Let's jump to the next one of bandwidth constraints and SME gaps. I mean that's a huge one inside an organization because a retailer taking on a new project, particularly a system replacement, the SMEs are the gold of this, but they've still got to do their day job. And if you can't carve them away from their day job, which was already full time, then your project is going to get compromised along the way. Um, what do you think on bandwidth, gents?
yeah. I think organisations have to make the sacrifice. If you're talking about a major project, you've got to release the appropriate talent to be involved in the delivery of this project, and key SMEs are part of that.
Yeah,
And you can't have, it doesn't work very well when people are doing their quotes real job and just releasing a couple of hours to the project.
yeah.
Doesn't work. Um, it undermines testing. It undermines a lot of things. So very important to have the right allocation of subject matter experts.
Good stuff. Anything to add there, Mr. Lawler?
Yeah, I mean, it's planning, and then that first phase after is just constant communication. If you're communicating that this is something that's important, but you're not allowing time, that's a conflict. That's something that is going to carry through the whole project. And what you're really saying is, it may be important. Talk to your supervisor. Maybe it's not. It's this disconnect that I've seen on a lot of different projects, and successful projects make the effort to say, no, this is 20 hours. They put numbers to it. And we call these IT projects.
Sure.
We are never doing IT projects. These are people projects.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
are implementing technology for the betterment of their employees and their customers. But people come first. If we don't understand that and their culture, then you're running uphill. You're going to hit that 35% instead of 140. So
So we're
and
running out of time here, gentlemen. So we're going to have to nail the last one quickly. And this was in the area of vendor overpromise and underdeliver. And we've seen it time and time again where we don't delve into discovery enough. Vendors will hear the first sentence and say they've got it covered, but when you get to the second sentence, you realize that there's only a 50% coverage. What do we think there on vendor overpromising? I'll go to Mr. Lawler first.
yeah, I just wanted to finish on Joe Romain's last topic. It actually blends perfectly into this one. Um, yes, they often overpromise, and everyone wants to make their sale. That's why you bring in third-party teams to try to evaluate software. Um, I think one of the most important steps is actually interviewing their current clientele.
Well, I'm sure this is something we could spend a lot more time on. We'll rejoin this subject on the next episode. For the audience, if you've watched this video and you like what we're saying, you'd like to read more, we've got a QR code that links into a CRA white paper on the subject, and follow along and tune in for the next time. In the meantime, to Joe and Mike, thank you for coffee.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good day.